Yes, how are you everyone? Of late, there has been a lot of talk about the political transition in Uganda. In fact, the talk about transition, it is taking a center stage in the discussion of the country on each and every day that passes. As very many people project names of those expected to take over from President Museveni, they forget that there is a class of people who are near at the post of presidency. Then we all see that the deep state is trying to succeed itself by propelling MUHOOZI Kainerugaba to the presidency. And among the very many people who are projected to take over from President Museveni, a name is normally forgotten. And what is this name? This name is for a man known as General Kayanja, the current commander land forces.
You see, the person who has just called me, General Temo, by the time we went to the handing over and take over today, he was my senior. But I'm his senior now.
The military it's a calling. It's a calling. It's about patriotism. It's about being a revolutionary. It's about discipline. It's about hard work and loyalty. Very, very important. When you are CLF, you are in charge of many operations because you are command of the ground forces.
In this video, I've come to talk about the political transition in our country. We all know ever since we attained our independence in 1962, we've never had a peaceful transfer of power. In fact, we've seen various coups led by different military men as a system of changing leadership. But before I talk about this, I want to tell you a story, because as we proceed, this story will act as a reference to the information I'm going to give you. But before I give you this story, I want to let you know that if you're new to this channel, please subscribe. And if you're watching this video from a different platform, please head on to YouTube, type in Sula Mawagali. There is a lot of content of this nature. If geopolitics and economics is what you want, this will be definitely the right channel for you to subscribe to. So, this is a story. Once upon a time, there was an old man who had a lot of children and a heir who was the elder son. One day, the old man went to the bush and brought a fox. In his mind, he thought the fox would do the duty of a dog in a home. I'll call this fox a monster. So, it started to take care of this fox until the fox grew to a mature one. He used to use this fox to threaten his neighbors. He used to use this fox to threaten whoever he would deem a threat to his existence. He could feed this fox on time. But as the old man grew older and weaker, he stopped to feed the fox on time. And one day, as the cracks emerged in the house which kept the fox broke into these cracks, devoured the man, and also devoured his elder son, who was expected to be the heir. The reason I'm giving this story is to take you back in the history of our country. We got our independence in 1962. It had President Mutesa as the first president and Milton Obote as the first prime minister. When there were misunderstandings between the first president Mutesa and the prime minister Obote, just like the old man who went to the bush and brought the monster to feed it at home, to do the work of the dog in a home, Obote brought the monster, and in this case, it is the army.
The palace fell at dusk. The Kabaka apparently had escaped, either before or during the fighting. Next day, the palace was set on fire.
The pressmen seem to think that the Kabaka has done nothing wrong, that it's only the government that has done wrong things. It's not my problem to put an end to Kabaka. We are prepared for anything. And my guess is that there won't be any resistance unless foreigners try to poke their noses into it. But we'll cut down their noses to shape.
Ladies and gentlemen, we've always had the army in our body politic. And putting the army in the politics of a country has resulted to endless coups since our independence. Because the army is not supposed to be in the politics of a country. In fact, the police is the only entity which is supposed to practice following the constitution in the politics of a country. So when Obote brought this monster in the politics of a country by ousting Mutesa as the president, he forgot that as his president went on, just as the monster saw the crack in the door and went to devour the owner and the son, the same monster, the army, overthrew Obote's presidency. We all remember that Amin overthrew Obote's presidency. And we all remember that Amin was the CDF, the commander of the army.
The members of the Uganda Army and Air Force decided to take over from the civilian role because of the last arrangement which were made by the Dr. Apollo Milton Obote to disarm the all tribe of Uganda except his own tribe, Langi and Acholi.
Have you been well treated, Madam Obote?
Yes.
What is
How
your...
have the children taken all this, Sister Betty? We've got the children here with you.
How are you?
All right.
And you?
I'm all right.
Have you heard from Daddy? What's your name?
Lakaki.
Do you feel safe now?
Well, a bit worried and scared, but I'm being well looked after now.
When Amin attained the presidency, he abolished the constitution and banned election in the country. At least he was genuine. He told us he doesn't believe in election, and he said that he's going to be the president for life. And this resulted to people like Museveni to form Fronasa, Kikosi Marum under Tito Kwero Lutwa with the help of Mzee Nyerere to fight Amin in 1979. When Amin was overthrown in 1979, they formed an interim government which was headed by Yusuf Lule. And Yusuf Lule was ousted as president after the reason they gave for Lule's ouster is lack of cooperation with the monster which was in Mosh. I call the army the monster because the army is not supposed to be in the center of politics of any country. The army is supposed to guard the borders of our country. When Yusuf Lule was ousted, they brought Bina Issa. Bina Issa was the president who succeeded Yusuf Lule. Since the monster was still in the body politic of our country, Bina Issa wanted to change the command of the army, who was by that time called Oito Jok, to make him the ambassador in Algeria, and also chased Yoweri Museveni from the Ministry of Defense. And you know what happened? The monster, ladies and gentlemen, overthrew the government of Bina Issa. This is the reason as to why I call the army a monster in the politics of any country. When Bina Issa was overthrown, they installed Obote, and we held an election in 1980. We all know that in 1980, General Museveni and Paulo Muhanga was the chairperson of the military council. General Museveni was the vice chairperson. And by this time, the monster was still in the center of our politics. It is said that Semogere won this election, but since the monster, the army, was still at the center of our politics, it is said that Paulo Muhanga took over from the chairman of Electoral Commission, who was known as Sekono, and announced the result. This prompted people like General Museveni to go in the bush and fight. Fortunately or unfortunately, Museveni won the guerrilla war, and in 1986 he was elected as president. Ladies and gentlemen, just as the old man who went to the bush and brought a fox, I'm calling it the monster, to feed it so that it could guard him against his enemies. Even General Museveni went to the bush. After winning the guerrilla war, he brought a monster, the army. He still maintained the army in the body politic of our country. I remember I was young in 1996. I could hear my parents speaking and different people saying that Museveni once said that a mere paper cannot remove him from power, and that he came by the barrel of the gun. And this is maintaining the monster in the body politic of our country. Today, as we speak about transition, we can see General MUHOOZI moving around freely, campaigning, breaking every standing order of the army. Yet in the history, we've seen people like Tumukunde being jailed for more than 3 years. We've seen Besigye being court-martialed for just outing a missive. We've seen Sejusa suffering the same fate for just commenting on politics. Yet MUHOOZI makes political statements on Twitter, declares about being president, and nothing is done on him. And guess what? Since the army is at the center of the politics, you don't think that the people who are in the army are stupid. I'll give you an example. General Muhanga entered the military in 1985, right before Museveni was sworn in as president. Do you know that he just attained the rank of the Lieutenant General recently, few months back? Major Dick Olum entered the army in 1990. He's still a Major General. Okay. Mbadi entered the army in the 80s. He's a CDF. Yet a person who entered the army in the 1999, known as General MUHOOZI Kainerugaba, has sprung in all these positions before all these people. Can you imagine? Has sprung in all ranks before these people. And don't think these people are stupid. They also talk about this when they are there with their families at home. They also talk about this when they are with their fellow soldiers in the bush. And they ask themselves, why is it that General MUHOOZI sprang quickly to bigger ranks, yet they entered the army before them? They have commanded fierce battles more than General MUHOOZI. Because I can give you examples. General Muhanga has been in command in Somalia, AMISOM, has been in Sudan, has been in Congo. The same to Major Dick Olum, the same to other soldiers. Yet some of them retain lower ranks. Yet some of them don't get the freebies as General MUHOOZI. So don't think they are stupid. And remember, since they are always entangled in partisan politics, just as the monster saw the crack in the door and devoured the owner from the sun, some of them may pick the bad habit of beating up competitors to retain power. And that day one of them will want to take power, that day one of them will want to lead Uganda as president, guess who he will devour? Your guess is as good as mine, because they always copy the bad manners of those in power, using the army to beat competitors. And the day they'll want to take over power of this country, they'll do the same. And before they crush the opposition, guess who they'll crush first? One of the good things General Museveni has done is to preside over this army. General Museveni has presided over the Ugandan army because we've not had a coup since the 1980s. But he has continued using the army in his bid to retain the presidency. That is why you always see different generals commenting on how they'll crush the opposition, and they have never been called to order from Kakoza Mutale, from General Kaihura, from very many people. Some even praising him. An officer from the army makes statements which are pro-Museveni, he won't be touched. But anyone who comes out, not even coming out, anyone who is perceived to support the opposition will be crushed. Okay? So, I think by maintaining this monster in the body of politics of our country, as we are nearing transition, it is going to signal more people who may want the presidency to use any means to take over the presidency. And among those people may be those from the army. And let me make myself clear that I'm not saying that the soldiers I've mentioned are going to take over the presidency. I'm just using it figuratively. The people who will occupy the office of the Commander Land Force, the office of the CDF, the office of the battalion commander, may want to take over the presidency using unconstitutional means because we've made our politics to be stupid. It has never been precedented where a competitor is jailed in the middle of an election. We all saw when Bobi Wine was jailed in the middle of an election.
This is not politics as usual. This is a revolution. You know that every time we united, we have won.
Bobi Wine, who was raised in the city slums and went on to become a music superstar and then an MP, is channeling the hopes of many young Ugandans who say they've grown tired of poverty, of corruption, and of an old guard who have been in power for decades. Just before noon on November 18th, Bobi Wine is arrested in Luuka, ostensibly for holding election rallies that breach Uganda's COVID-19 rules on mass gatherings. The arrest, his supporters say, is politically motivated.
Tell me where it has ever happened. We all saw when Bobi Wine's car was shot at as he was heading to Jinja.
Motoka ya president bagikubya amasasi. Motoka ya president bagikubya amasasi omupiira. Motoka ya president bagikubya amasasi.
Ladies and gentlemen, citizens of the world, as you can see, our lives continue to be in danger every day. Right now, we have been attacked by the Uganda People's Defense Forces and the police. As you can see, they have shot live bullets in our car. That is a bullet hole. That is a bullet hole right there.
Okay, and this has been the trend. Sebagala's car has ever been shot at. Besigye has ever been jailed for very many times because he's a competitor for General Yoweri Museveni. Okay, so as we make our politics stupid, we are inviting players who may want to use unconstitutional means. And it even scares me to say this, that General Museveni is becoming more weak and weak, because he used to do speeches while standing. Nowadays, if he's to address a press conference, he has to sit down with a cup of tea. It shows time. It shows that he's becoming more weaker. Just as the old man with a monster at home got weaker and the monster decided to feed itself. As General Museveni grows weaker and weaker, which he is doing, he may not have the same tenacity he used to have over the army. And trust me, since we put the army at the center of our politics, we are going to see what we have never seen before. And just as the fox, which devoured the owner and the hare, we may see the same monster devouring someone with his hair. Again, let me make myself clear once again. I'm not saying that the soldiers I've mentioned want to take over the presidency. No, I've just used it in context that the people who occupy positions in the army one day are going to take over the presidency using unconstitutional means because of putting them in partisan politics and trying to propel someone from within them who may have less qualification, who may have less tenacity, who may have faced little or no battles compared to them, and this is going to bring anarchy in the country. And by the way, and even generals who move with MUHOOZI may be among the people who may devour him when the cracks emerge in the door. And I can give you examples. The person who overthrew Obote was Museveni. Museveni was in Obote's camp. In fact, Museveni is a student of Obote. Museveni helped Obote by forming from NASA in the process of fighting Amin. Or I can also take you outside Uganda. The person who killed Thomas Sankara was the person who used to stand behind him, Blaise Compaoré. Okay? The person who commanded the killing of Gaddafi when the cracks emerged in the door were the same people who were in government, who made the transitional government. The person who cut off Samuel Doe's ear was in his army. Okay? So I can give you countless examples. I can give you countless examples of people who have been devoured by the same monster after failing to remove the monster from the politics of a country. As a country, we've continued to keep our army in the politics of a country, but soon it is going to backfire. Soon it is going to backfire, and we are going to head to turmoil since we are nearing transition. I've recorded this video in the night, and please refer to this video anytime from now. You will come to me giving me everything, telling me how I was right after this has happened. Thank you very much for listening in. I wait for you on another one.